little over a year ago, I decided to take on a terrifying curse, a bloody journey that would lead me through the darkest recesses of cinematic history. A quest to watch every Dracula movie ever made. I called it DracuQuest. Last episode, I talked about the 11 worst Dracula movies I've seen.
Halloween, Halloween, spooky, kooky Halloween.
This episode, I have 10 more movies that, to be honest, are not much better. So hold on to your fangs and try not to shit hot lava down your pants because most of these movies are gut-wrenchingly bad. Let's go. From Academy Award-winning cinematographer and director Freddie Francis, The Vampire Happening is a sleazy sex comedy about a woman who inherits a creepy castle and her identical vampire ancestor who is still living in said castle, leading to a series of cases of mistaken identity, mostly revolving around the big vampire orgy that's coming to town. And of course Dracula shows up, and he loves sex. Surprisingly, some of the comedy in this movie actually sort of works. Like, I wouldn't say I laughed a single time watching it, but the characters are so absurd that they make the movie at least the tiniest bit watchable. Still bad though, and I never want to see it again.
Oh, don't do that, bitch.
Directed by psychotronic Z-movie legend Albert Band, Zoltan the Hound of Dracula dares to ask the question, what if Dracula had a dog? And the answer is that dog would be woken up 100 years later by Soviet soldiers, then travel to America to wander the woods for an hour and 20 minutes looking for Dracula's lost heir so it can turn him into the new Dracula, while also turning a bunch of dogs into vampires. This is definitely your standard 70s no-budget take-a-camera out into the woods movie. However, it earns points for being produced with a decent level of skill. The intense shot composition, brutal fight choreography, and fast-paced editing really sell the terror of being attacked by a pack of angry vampire dogs. While the movie is not very good, its effective production actually makes it one of the scariest movies this low on the list. I wouldn't say it makes this woods-wandering movie worth watching though. Love at First Bite is part of a wide subgenre that I like to call Dracula Goes to the Big City comedies, where Dracula goes to a big city and finds himself overwhelmed by the alien ways of urban life. In this Dracula Goes to the Big City movie, George Hamilton, known for such tasteful, non-problematic movies as Zorro, the Gay Blade, plays Count Dracula, who's just been evicted from his castle in Transylvania and is forced to make a new life for himself in New York. Once there, he tries to adjust to life in the Big Apple, while falling in love with a woman who happens to be dating the descendant of Van Helsing. It's a great premise for a comedy, but Love at First Bite just doesn't live up to it. None of the gags are funny, and all the characters are extremely one-note, like the love interest whose only purpose is to fall in love with Dracula, or Van Helsing guy whose entire character is a bunch of jokes about being Jewish. I will say Van Helsing guy's actor, Richard Benjamin, does a very good job and is genuinely fun to watch.
And I feel pretty good.
But sadly his performance doesn't redeem this stinker film. I haven't even gotten to the worst part yet, which is the bizarre racist bits. Definitely stay clear of this one.
Good evening.
I used to love this movie when I was a little kid, so imagine my disappointment when I watched it as an adult and found that not a single interesting or funny thing happens in the entire movie. Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf is really Shaggy's movie more than Scooby's, as he catches the werewolf's curse and is forced to participate in Dracula's monster drag race. Emphasis on drag because this movie drags on. I will say this movie has some great silly monster designs, but they're all wasted on this boring, awful film. None of the jokes land and the characters are irritating, it's just a bad time. If there was one thing Hotel Transylvania 1 needed more of, it was awkward, confused race allegory that has nothing of substance to say, and yet insists upon sending mixed messages throughout the entire film. I suppose this is what happens when you try to do social commentary through the vehicle of an Adam Sandler movie. Hotel Transylvania 2 follows Adam Sandler and the rest of the Happy Madison gang as they try to teach Adam Sandler's grandson to be a vampire, worried that he will become a human instead. It's all very stupid and boring, not to mention uncomfortable because of how badly the movie mangles its race metaphor, until it becomes marginally more enjoyable when Adam Sandler's dad, Mel Brooks, shows up and then his humanoid bat minions try to kill the kid. It feels like a different movie at this point, but that's okay because I'll take anything over Hotel Transylvania 2. Happy Family, aka Monster Family, featuring the voice talents of Jason Isaacs, Nick Frost, and Emily Watson, is about the Wishbone family, a dysfunctional family consisting of mother, father, son, and daughter. On one fateful day, Mother dials the wrong number and accidentally calls Count Dracula, who falls in love with her over the phone and instructs his henchman Baba Yaga to turn her into a vampire. However, the spell backfires and turns the entire family into goofy Halloween monsters, setting them on a quest to confront Dracula and discover happiness as a family in the process. Happy Family, aka Monster Family, is like every bad animated movie stereotype combined. Fart jokes,
Oh, that's Dad.
ending dance party, stiff cliche dialogue.
And how do you think we should do that? I haven't worked that out yet.
It isn't like egregiously bad, but it's just so generic it's basically nothing. You might like it if you're 6. A collaboration between the legendary studios Hammer and Shaw Brothers, Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires is about Peter Cushing's Van Helsing and a crew of martial artists, including kung fu action star David Chang, fighting Dracula and an army of skeletons in China. Sounds badass, right? Unfortunately, it isn't. Everything Hammer brings to the table is just the worst, with a terribly dry plot and lifeless, pointless characters. The Shaw Brothers' contribution isn't great either, with some of the weakest fights they've ever produced. I will give Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires some credit though, for as far as I know it's the first movie to experiment with vampires in the wuxia genre, paving the way for the way better hopping vampire movies like Mr. Vampire, and one of my all-time favorite films, Spooky Encounters. Rankin Bass's Mad Monster Party is the ultimate Monster Mash movie, with Boris Karloff's Dr. Frankenstein hosting a party for a wide variety of monsters, including Dracula, the Mummy, Mr. Hyde, and a very funny Phyllis Diller-voiced Bride of Frankenstein. You'll never hear me say this about another movie, but Mad Monster Party actually suffers from too many Halloween monsters, all fighting for screen time to the point that none of them ever do anything very memorable, and there isn't any room left for a half-decent story. This leads to Mad Monster Party being a very boring film, despite its charming aesthetic.
Lunch, anyone?
Vampira, also known as Old Dracula, is another Dracula Goes to the Big City movie, but with maybe the most insane plot of anything on this list. Basically, Dracula has converted his castle to a tourist trap in Transylvania, where he lures a group of Playboy models since one of them has a unique blood type that he can use to resurrect his lost bride Vampira. However, and remember I warned you this was weird, because the model with the correct blood type is a black woman, the blood turns Vampira black as well. And since Dracula is racist, and to be clear, this isn't framed as like a normal opinion in the movie, Dracula is explicitly a bad guy because he's racist.
I'm black.
He flies to America and recruits this big idiot Mark to find more blood to turn Vampira white again. After failing several times, eventually Dracula learns to love Vampira as she is, but instead of abandoning his old ways like you might expect, he does something truly shocking.
Good heavens.
Yeah,
Case of mistaken identity, I'm sure.
Dracula Untold starts out as the most generic fantasy movie, which is not that bad to be honest, but it quickly descends into a dark pit of edginess and self-importance that just really sucks. I do think that Luke Evans' Dracula's central conflict is very compelling, with him having to choose between risking his country's destruction or turning himself into a monster to save it. But then the movie completely wipes out that conflict by having the Ottoman Empire kill everybody, so Dracula never has to make the choice. It's such a huge letdown and it ruins what would have otherwise been a pretty average film. Charles Dance Vampire is a very funny freak though. It's unfortunate that since the collapse of the Dark Universe, the games will never begin.
Let the games begin.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Dracula's really been on my back about this. And tune in next episode for 10 more pretty bad movies. Goodbye! Ha 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 ha!
Halloween, Halloween, spooky, kooky, Halloween, 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 creepy, freaky, Halloween.